Welcome to Inspired by Design, the podcast where we explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you rediscover your authentic self and navigate life with less resistance. I'm Katie Rupert, a former hustle and grind overachiever on a thrilling and messy journey. I love to share what I'm learning and help others in self-discovery using human design. So if you're seeking a way to move forward, let me be your weekly mindset coach and share stories to inspire you to action towards your unique purpose without the force or burnout. Hello, welcome back. It's Katie, your host, and I am so excited to introduce you to Anna Palmer. I have a guest with me today. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
I want to introduce you to Anna. There's so many things that I could say about her, but because this podcast is all about inspiring you to take action on the things you've been holding back on, Anna just made a huge step forward in a goal that she's had for a long time. Anna and I go way back, goodness, probably between 10 and 15 years ago. We met through Pampered Chef. How fun. And she struck me immediately as like a go-getter. She was a mom. She had her own business, a hairstylist. Everybody loved her. Every time I was around her, I was like, I want to know her better. And we reconnected here more recently. And today she is running a House of Color franchise here in the St. Louis area. And she'll tell you a little bit about that. I recently got my colors done, and it was one of the most fun experiences that I've had as an adult personally. I loved how she was able to take her expertise and just make me feel like this confidence that I didn't have. We're going to talk about all of that. But before we get too far in, because I love to look at these conversations and stories through the lens of human design, I want to tell you a little bit about Anna's human design and just a couple of blips about her chart. We were able to do a one-to-one reading here recently. I had so much fun because she was great at telling me how her design was spot on. And that was just, again, just a joy for me. She is a pure generator. That means that her authority is through her sacral center. So if she responds a heck yes, then that thing is for her. She also is a 6-2. That's the role model natural or hermit in traditional human design, which means she's really here to bump into life, learn some things, and then take in lessons from other people and observing them. And she becomes this wise role model for all of us. And that 2 side of her is really about being able to nourish herself, take the time that she needs to recharge and develop her personal gifts, which she has a ton of. Anna, I've said enough about you. What do you want everyone to know about you? Introduce yourself a bit.
Yes. Hello. It's so awesome to be here. I think this is such a fun kind of full circle moment for both of us. But what Katie said, I'm a franchise owner of a House of Color business. I've been doing that for 3 years. I really enjoy that. I'm just a big creative in general. And we talked about this when we did my reading that I have dabbled in a lot of different creative businesses. They all kind of seem to be on the same plane of like learning a new skill, allow me to be creative and flexible, and also connect with other people and listen to their stories. And I love that part of my business. I have 3 kids. I'm really right now working on my podcast. That's the new thing that I've been working on. It's been in the works for a long time. And I finally just said I need to just do it. And we were just talking that my first episode was called Rip the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can kind of get in my own way of doing the things that I want to do and find excuses and reasons that it's not the right time. So I'm really excited about that right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's so synchronistic too, because I listened to that first episode yesterday in the car and I was like, oh my gosh, she did it. I'm so excited to have this conversation because it's all about like you've had this little idea baby of having a podcast so long. And that was one spark that kind of drew me to you. I was just on socials, we're friends out there, and you said, guess what? Podcast is coming. And I was like, oh my gosh, me too. I'm doing a podcast too. And then when we reconnected, I listened to your story, which you guys have to go check out her podcast. I'll link it in the show notes, but it is It was just a ton of fun to hear your story and that you called it, I'm ripping off the Band-Aid, like, this episode doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just making it happen. I'm done. I'm done holding back on a dream that I've had, and it's time for me to get this stuff out there. So I love, love, love that about you. And I can't wait to see your podcast journey. So I guess the reason I was really wanting to have you on was a conversation we had during the color session that we did together. I've been obsessed with all like what are my colors? And I had a really hard time deciding which one am I? And I thought I landed, but I wanted the confidence of an expert to tell me. It made me feel really good that you took extra time. You're like, I'm not sure yet. And then you were sure. But in that session, there was a story you told me about how women think, well, it's kind of vain for me to worry about what I look like and maybe I shouldn't invest in myself to do something like this color profile. And I'm sure you found this to be true when you were doing hairstyle as a hairstylist as well. But the story really struck me because you talked about how you went ahead and put on colors and I want you to tell the story.
I had my colors done like 3.5 years ago. I mean, I got my colors done and I opened this business really soon after because it was so life changing. But before that, I had seen it. I knew what it was like in the 80s and 90s, but I had never seen it done in modern times. And a friend of mine who was going through a really hard time, and that's what I talked about in the episode of my podcast. I'd had a new baby. I was my third child. I was just really down in the dumps, self-esteem wise. And I lost my dad. And I couldn't function well. And so I was a stay-at-home mom and I had lost myself so much in that time period. And a friend of mine was also going through a hard time and she'd asked me, like, we should go get our colors done. And I was really hesitant, mostly because I didn't want to be vulnerable sitting there with someone that I didn't know and sitting in front of a mirror and all the things. Which is something I also see when I take clients every day is there's people who most of my clients are going through some kind of transition in their life, which is really cool to be a part of. It can be very vulnerable for people. And then there is this aspect of why do we get to this point sometimes as women where we have lost ourselves? And that's what I thought when I opened the business. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It's so life changing for me. But my holdback was, is this becoming obsessed with how we appear and how we look and all of these things? I am raising 3 children. 2 of them are daughters. And I feel really strongly about not overemphasizing everything based on looks. But what I really found was after I got my colors done and then I got my style done is that I was actually slowing down and taking time to take care of myself, even if it was putting on jewelry instead of rushing out the door. You've seen that meme floating around where it's like, my kids and they're dressed to the nines, and then you look like Justin Bieber in the gray tracksuit in the background or Adam
Yes.
Sandler. Like, that was me. And my girls were dressed. Their hair, their little bows, all the things. And then I'm a slob kebab because I'm just not taking time for myself. And so when I did this business, I'd had other businesses in the past, and I was always really hesitant on putting myself out there. My husband would always say, like, if you're going to do this, you have to talk about it and like put yourself out there. So the story I told Katie in my studio was I got my colors done. No one really knew what it was. No one knew I had done it. And their thing was like, wear the lipstick for a couple weeks, see how you feel. Like other people are going to notice. And that's the piece where I'm like, is this all about? No, it's not all about compliments. That's not the point. But people notice there's something different about you. No one ever said like, oh, you're wearing lipstick. I've never seen you in lipstick before. They were just like, wow, like you look so good. Your skin looks so good. Like you look happy. You like, I love whatever you're doing. And I wasn't going to get ready to go to Target. I was going to wear my old paint clothes and like, no, like put on the nicer, even though I was wearing a Nike, sweatpants or whatever, put it on in your colors, brush your hair, look presentable. And I ended up running into 2 people that I knew. And instead of having that moment, I'm from Nebraska. We live in the Midwest still. And there's this whole like Midwest, when someone comes to your house unannounced, which don't ever do that to me. But the whole thing is like where you start apologizing because you have a can of paint out or your kids ate at the table and you're like, don't look at me. Usually don't look like this. Oh, my Christmas tree is still up. And we start apologizing. We do that for our appearance. Like, oh, I didn't know I was getting out of the car. My hair's a mess. And I found myself, I didn't do that. I was just like, they're like, oh, the girl I ran into was someone I hadn't seen since I was in a mom's group when my kids were really little. She's like, your skin looks so good. Like, what? And she didn't know that I had done anything different, but she noticed there was something different about me. And that was so cool. And then later on after I'd already started this business, similar situation happened where I ran into a client of mine and a person who now works for me as my associate. And I ran into both of them at our little Target. And I knew if I hadn't presented myself in the way that I want to be presented, to be received, I would have avoided the conversation. And the one thing that I've learned through both of those experiences is when you put the time into yourself and invest in yourself and you show up the way you want to show up, you are much more open to the opportunity to have a conversation with someone that you haven't seen in a while. It could be something in business, it could be something personal, it could be your kids' teachers, but you're much more prepared to, you're not worried about yourself because you've already taken care of that. And that was the missing piece. It's not being obsessed with your appearance, but presenting yourself in the way that you're comfortable. So you're not worried about yourself so that you can show up, you can open your door and not apologize for what you're wearing, that you're just like, hi, it's so good to see you. And you're not feeling self-conscious. So that was such a huge takeaway piece for me because when I started thinking, is this too outward facing? No, it's actually allowing me to not think about my appearance.
Ugh. It's so powerful to me, that story. Again, it just hit me again. It's like I'm getting out of my own way by this part. It is done. I don't have to worry. It's not even, I don't mind if anyone sees me as a mess. I don't care if that I'm in the messy middle of everything. I mean, that's part of why this podcast is out here too. I'm sharing things that I'm learning along the way.
Yes.
But this really, really resonated with me. And I think it will with most women, especially. It's like, let's just, button that piece up. I feel confident. I'm showing up as my best self in this moment that I can, even for a quick trip to Target. And it also reminds me of like, when I'm shopping for clothing, I have a favorite pair of pants. Okay. And I used to just save them. I wouldn't wear them to Target. I wouldn't waste a wear or like have to wash them just for walking around. And so I'd wear whatever I don't feel my most confident in. I'm not going to go and do a meeting or a business conversation in these sweatpants, but those other ones I'd save for that day. And then I never got around to wearing them because I worked from home. But who am I dressing for? But that was one of the things, like, I know that our listeners probably can't see my shirt, but, like, this is one of the shirts I bought after our session, and I'm like, "I'm gonna wear that when I'm on Zoom," and God help me. I feel like, "All right, I feel good." I don't have to worry, or like you said, I'm so good at apologizing
Yeah.
when it's not exactly what I think is perfect, and here's the thing, they aren't even noticing. You're just taking
No.
it's like, the selfishness that you think you're gonna be is actually just as selfish to be thinking about, like, "I'm so sorry that I have this thing the paint can out," or that
Yes.
shirt is kind of dirty, it might smell, like, don't sniff too close. Like, I've done that my whole life, but this just takes that out of equation so you can have a real conversation.
Yes. And it really is about, and I always like to say this like to my clients and, even just friends or whoever, it's like what it really teaches you, these services that I now do are to be the best version of you, not to be a version of me or someone else. Like, what is comfortable to you? Because what's comfortable to me isn't comfortable to you. To me, like I just got back from a trip to Disneyland. I wear a dress to Disneyland. And so many of my friends were like, how did you wear? Like, because that is comfortable to me. And
Yeah.
to you, it might be, it's too much, it's too finicky. And so it's really about leaning into who you are, not, what that's supposed to look like. So I find that freeing as it is empowering.
Yeah, and not making that decision based on a should or what
Right.
someone else or what seems to be the right way. What you're
Yes.
talking about there is showing up authentically.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And I know like this color stylist, color What do you call yourself?
I call myself like an image consultant. We're personal stylists, but really it like the whole package is color and style. A lot of people see us as the color because that's kind of the exciting instant gratification type of service. But yes,
So,
stylist or image consultant.
image consultant. So, this is one little tiny itty bitty piece of who you are. And you have such a rich history with business. You've got so much experience with being a mom. But one of the things that I see you as just, I'll go first. I'll go ahead and get stuff done. Like you're not scared to do stuff. And you have this group that you're part of, like a mastermind network of powerful women making their businesses and things. I would love for you to talk a little bit about like how I want to say how you create your life because you're following things that you love doing and that's led you to where you are now. But where are you? Do you know where you're going? Do you want to tell us more about your podcast? I just think it would be so valuable for these listeners to hear about someone that's really taken some action. It's not just all been dreams for you.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say like, how do I create my life? So I would say I've always been a dreamer. I've always been someone who journals and writes and plans. Like I enjoy that process as much as I do of achieving those goals. I don't get, and you and I talked about this, the satisfaction for me is not in an award or an accolade or a check. It's really about the learning process. I love to learn and I love learning new skills. So one thing that I do, not every day, I have a lot of different practices I do, but one practice that I really love to do is I have a goals journal or a dream journal, and I write the same things in there every day until I achieve it. And but it's never it's almost hard for me because I have to limit it to 10. So that's something that I do, and it's really hard in the middle and waiting, being patient. But it's crazy when I flip back to 5 years ago, 10 years, like the things that I didn't even like, I thought those first 10 were going to be so hard to achieve. And they've changed. I've taken things off. But some of the things that I put on there that I thought were going to be lifetime things have happened. So I write little things to big things in there. And so that's one thing that I really love to do because I like to have that history. But another thing I do is I just really make time to learn new skills, to learn new crafts, to learn from other people. And I will make time for it. And I know everybody says that, but I really do I've had time poverty since becoming a mom. I have 3 kids, 3 different stages and ages. My husband traveled for years. I was a stay-at-home mom. And I would do anything at the time to do like DIY projects and things like that because I loved it so much. And I'm like, nobody's going to tell me I can't do this stuff. So I would say I really do just lean into like what I'm drawn to. I just kind of throw myself into things. And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that in my podcast, I talked about this too. And you and I have talked about this, that I've felt like I've kept that piece of me a little bit more secretive in my adult years, because I think that in society, that's kind of frowned upon to be jumping from thing to thing to thing.
Mm.
But that's actually what works for me. And yeah, so like when I talk about businesses, like I did hair, I've had an embroidery business, I've had all these different things I've done, and I love all of them. They're all creative, but I've really just learned like when I want to do something, like I'm going to find a way. That's my personality. Like I'm going to figure it out. And one of the things that I love is learning how other people do their life, like
Mm.
life hacks and how do you get out the door in the morning and how do you make time for the things that you want to do. The mastermind that I'm in has been extremely helpful for me too, just seeing 10 to 12 other women who are also excelling in their business and their personal lives. That's really important to me. My family is extremely important to me. I would give up all of my other things for them any day. And so I've just always had to kind of ride that wave of I want to be present with my family and also follow my passions. And that's not easy. I mean, we all know that, right? Like there's no such thing as a balance, but I will continue to juggle both of those things because they're just so important to me. So really planning for me is a huge thing, mapping it out.
Mhm.
I map out what I want to do and be a good mom and be a good wife. I build it on planning. I write everything down. Nothing's too little or too big. I feel like when I just say, "Oh, I really want to do that," everybody says that, like, "Oh, I really want to go on that trip."
Hmm.
Okay, do you really want to go on that trip, or are we going on that trip? Like, we have to get it on paper. And I've really got my husband on board with that too. I'm saying, like, if there's something we really want to do, we have to plan it or life will pass us by.
Yeah.
So, and I think my one last thing, I'm thinking about this in real time, is how do you figure out what those things are? The best thing I've done in the last few years is individually and with my spouse sat down and figured out what are our core values for our family and for our life. And we have top three, top four. And that's how we want to spend our time. And that's how we want to spend our money. And so this isn't about being a good person. Like those values, those are different values. These are values on which are equally important to figure out. So if I want to stay home because that is a value, is relaxation, being with my family, I'm totally fine with that. Another way that I like to spend my time is traveling. So sometimes I'm doing that and sometimes I'm doing nothing. But we got really granular on that. And it's been so helpful because the trip, do you want to take the trip? That's one of our values is traveling. So let's find a way to make it happen. And I think when we got really precise on what our cumulative values are, our household values are, it's so easy to say yes and no to stuff. We love going to the theater as a family. That's something we really love doing. That's worth spending our time and money on. And so it's an easy yes for me. And then there's some stuff you don't want to do. And it's easy to say, that doesn't align. Like, I don't want to do that. So I feel like that's been something that's really helped me in the last few years.
Yeah. Uh, that's so good. I was just thinking as you're sharing and you're naturally giving us advice on how could you get started? Because as a six, I'm just thinking of human design again. Like you're really meant to share your journey and it doesn't need to stop at just being inspiring. Okay, here's how we figured this out. You've done it right and you've done it wrong. And it would be really easy as you were sharing your story. I was like, oh man, there's going to be people who are like, I wish I was like that. I wish I just made time for stuff.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women specifically, they just they get stuck. They get stuck in a role. They get stuck in I will sacrifice myself for the sake of others. And I hope you don't mind me sharing, but I know everyone struggles with this. I know that you have been trying to figure out, okay, I'm starting to see I need to pull back and have some alone time, or you had a special word for your alone time.
Like sometimes like I need like, I sometimes joke back, I need my minutes. Is that what
Your
I said?
minute. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
must have been your minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that human design was just so, I've done the Enneagram and I'm like, I'm a this and I'm a that. And when I did human design, I'm like, no, is, this makes sense to me holistically.
Mhm.
And I related to so many things, no matter what type of what would you call the human design person? Not a personality test.
I mean, it's a roadmap. Yeah, I really
Yes.
see it as high achievers roadmap to making things not feel so hard.
Yes. It's just so different than, I guess, human design to me was so different than personality tests, if
Yeah,
that's the better way to
for
say it.
sure.
And so this felt so good when you told me, like, I do like to share what I've learned. I don't have a problem being vulnerable about the mistakes that I've made. I'm okay with that. And and I think I'm okay with that because when I, bump into other people and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how are you doing these things? How are you like a stay-at-home mom, but a working mom? You're like, I just do it. No, you don't. Like, no, you don't. And neither do I. I have help. I've had to go through, we don't have any family here. And so all those years when I say I made the time for it, I mean, I'm talking like digging deep to figure out how to do what I want to do on the side while being a stay-at-home mom. I think as women, we a lot of times do get hung up in and I think some of it is because we see such a glimpse into other people's life. I will never share bad or ugly about my family on social platforms. I will never. I'm not saying we don't have bad days. We do. But I will never share that because I respect their privacy. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in my life's just so much harder. And I have this going on and I have that going on. I have all that stuff going on too. I'm just not sharing it. And even just meeting so many women, it's like everybody has their stuff and they're hard. And so I think if to answer that, because I think the same thing too, even just being on a podcast, I'm like, I'm going to say these things. And what are people going to try to unwind about what I've said? And so one of the things is, what if you can only do 10 minutes of something that you love a day. Like what that might be it. It might be 5 minutes. I used to do what I love to do in the carpool lane by showing up a few minutes early and parking my car. I was one of those weirdos that's like, why are they here so early? Because I'm locked in the car for 30 minutes with nothing to do. It's not always easy, but I think always just pushing for that time, whatever. I'm not going to tell you to get a babysitter and do all that because that's not always possible. But even if it's getting up 10 minutes early or staying up 10 minutes late or whatever, like that's really how in little pockets of time, even now with my podcast, I don't have a day a week. I don't have a night a week. I'm doing this here with you. And then I'm running to get kids and you're recording with me in the middle of the day someday. It's just, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen. That is the reality, I think.
Yeah. And then the other side of this coin is you seem to be very clear on what you want when you know you want it. And sometimes that's
Yeah.
hard for people too. And so I love your advice about really taking the time to think like, what really matters to me? What is
Yeah.
always an easy yes? It can be something as simple as that. And so
Yes.
is there something, I mean, you've given us several little tips on things that you could take action on, but let's say someone listening is, I really want to get clear on what it is that I want for my life. I know there's
Mhm.
something more. Maybe it's that they feel a little trapped and their desire is really for freedom. It doesn't have to be any one specific thing, but they just want the freedom to have the 10 minutes to
Mhm.
and explore like, is it okay for me to want and desire something that's not in service to my family or my work or my obligations?
Yeah.
Is there a little tidbit that you'd want to leave listeners?
Well, I would say I really struggled with that when I opened this business with doing something that most definitely was inconveniencing my family. Like,
Mm,
I mean, I'm talking like I flipped my family on its head when I started this business. I had just had a third baby. I had three kids at three schools. My husband had traveled for 12 years. I had been that dominant, whatever we call that, like the whatever, the parent that's just always there. I had filled that role and I loved that role. And it was just as hard for me to give that up and hand it over as it was for them to take over. But I learned this is relating to children. I had to allow myself to let go of the control of every little piece of my life
mm,
and say, what are the top things? Are my kids fed? Do they have everything they need? And then I had to have a hard conversation with my husband. He, he didn't know he didn't know all the things I've done because I just was doing them. He was out of town working a lot. And so really I had to be an adult and have a hard conversation like, hey, this is really important to me. And I need some joy that has nothing to do with this family in my life. And this is what that looks like. And I think the reality is it took 18 months to 2 years for that transition from me starting this business to us in a flow, a good flow with the new schedule and the new situation. So I think that's the other thing is like you have to be patient. You have to give it time. It's not going to be today you want to spend this time for yourself and tomorrow you have a half a day a week. But I think trying to figure out what you like, start making a list of the things that when you're around certain people, when you're doing certain things, when you're on vacation, you're like, oh, what I really love is just walking with my coffee. Like that lights me up. So maybe I need to do that more and not be scrolling or whatever it is. I started taking Pilates classes. I had already started this business. Now my husband's carpooling. He's never done that before. And it's like, and now I'm going to start saying I'm taking Pilates. Like it's all these things. And it's just like, I just said, hey, I want to take these Pilates classes. He's like, okay, well, take them. And I think typical men, women, not old, but in these, we grew up in the 80s and 90s. We grew up where it's very dominant male, female roles. I mean, he doesn't understand why I'm like hesitant to say, I'm going to inconvenience you anymore. He's like, you're not inconveniencing me. So I had to get right with myself on
mm,
letting go of the guilt and the feeling bad and that I'm not a burden. Like I'm a
right.
human. And so a lot of it was internal work, not necessarily even taking the time. It was all the things I told myself about taking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
We get in our heads about that.
yes. That's so good, Anna. I so appreciate you. I want to call out one other thing you've said over and over, probably 3 or 4 times as you've shared is allow. That was one of my word of the years a couple of years ago. And learning to allow can mean a lot of things, but in the context you've shared it, it's like I, I'm just going to let it take some time. I'm just going to allow this to not feel good, but I definitely know it's for me. Just
Mhm.
I'm gonna take that next right step, if you will.
Yes.
Really
Well,
love
I think it is. It's like, so if you have, I have a dream to have a podcast. It
mm,
might be successful. It might not. That's not even the point.
not the
The
point.
point is, I wanted to start a podcast. Okay, I did it, and now it's off my dreams, and I'm on to something else. I'm still doing it, but it doesn't matter what it is. It's just another little thing that I've done that I wanted to do. And the risk is you end up 100 years old and you look back and you think, how silly was that I didn't do something I wanted to do? Like, right. That's the worst thing that's going to happen.
Mhm. And what you're talking about is it's actually my word of the year this year is trust. It's all about building trust, not in other people,
Mhm.
like they know what's right, but you are the one that's most equipped to know the direction for your life and self-trust. It's just a little step at a time. And you've done a beautiful job of being that role model for us. And I'm so grateful for this time. So going off script is the name of the podcast. I can't
Yes.
wait for everyone to have that under their follow button as well, because I know you've got so much more to share and excited to bring this to the world, to my little world. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about you, about what you do, about what's next for you? Anything at all as we wrap up today?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. Yes. I will share the links with Katie. If you're interested in color or style, you can find a House of Color consultant in your area. We're all over the country. And then, yes, my podcast is released on Wednesdays. And so I will also share that. So thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And so if this conversation sparks something in you and you just feel that little stir of, I think this was for me, I think I needed to know, we want you to find us on socials, DM, tell us what sparked in you and what you're going to take action on. And until next time, have a great day. Thanks again, Anna.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Inspired by Design with Katie Rupert. If today's episode sparked something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your takeaways, subscribe, or even leave a review to help others find the show. For more tools and insights, visit my free Facebook group. And until next time, keep embracing exactly who you are and move forward one inspired action at a time.